So we're going to be creating a new project today. This project will be probably one of the most fun projects that we've done so far. It will be similar to some of the games that you guys play already, similar to Geometry Dash, or more like the Dinosaur game you may play on Google Chrome when your internet is not working. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a floor for my game. So I'm going to head over to backdrops. Let's go to backdrops there, and let's draw my floor. There we go. So that's covered the whole part of the floor. I'm going to get the color I want. I don't really want this purple color. I'm going to get my saturation all the way over to 0, and let's get a nice grayish color. And I'm also going to actually get rid of the outline completely. So I'm going to head over to outline and get myself a transparent outline, which should have got rid of that. Okay, let's select that box again. Okay, so that box was not selected the first time around. And let's just move that around a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so that's positioned quite nicely for me there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm not really going to change the way my sprite is looking at the moment. I'm just going to code the way he is moving, and I can change his costume later on if I wish. So where do I want him to actually start? I want him to start the game from this position here. Okay, so now that I've got him there, shall I make him a little bit smaller? We can do that. That's up to you, but we want to get him lined up nicely. So his coordinates are x minus 179 and y is minus 55. So let's ensure whenever my game starts, he starts from that position. So I'm going to head over to events where my green flag is clicked. You guys should know this by now. I'm going to then use motion, and I want him to go to that position. So wherever he is, he will always start off there. Okay, and all this character will simply do is simply jump up and down, and that is all. When will he jump up and down? It's when the character or when the player presses the space bar. Okay, so as soon as I click on my space key, what do I want him to do? I want him to jump up. Now, obviously, this will be in motion. I can use the move 10 steps, but that will get him to move forward 10 steps. We are going to actually use the change X or Y. Now, if I want him to jump up, okay, that's vertically. Okay, we need to think which one is the X or Y. And now, a way to remember this, something that I learned when I was in school a few years ago, is that we were taught along the corridor and up the stairs. So along the corridor being the x-axis and the y-axis being up the stairs, because x comes first in the alphabet. So along the corridor, up the stairs. So y being vertically. So I want him to actually move vertically. Okay. So I need to think about how much do I want him to go up. I mean, about 100 pixels should be fine. I'm not going to change this to 100 because if I was, let's see what would happen. As soon as I click on X, he will just go all the way up there. I want it to seem as if he's actually jumping. So we're going to keep that as 10 pixels, and we're going to tell him to do that 10 times. Now I can do that by simply duplicating this 10 times. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a repeat loop. So we have used the repeat loops already. Remember, a loop is something where the end joins back to the beginning. So where I use something like this, let's start that again. Okay, so that was a bit more of a sort of a gradual jump. Obviously, once he's gone back up, once he's gone all the way to the top, I want him to come back down. Now, it's going to be obviously be the same code as this. So all I'll do is duplicate this and place one underneath. However, this one will be a minus 10. Okay, so let's test that out now. He started at the beginning. There we go. Okay, I didn't really like that little part at the top, so I may just simply add a small weight there as well. But remember, this is your game. You can sort of play around with this as you wish. And instead of that being 1 second, I'm going to try 0.1 second. So he does have a little hold there at the top. Okay, but that's up to you. Okay, so that's that done. Okay, so I've got him coded as I want. I may decide to actually change his motion a little bit as well. So I may want him to constantly change costumes. Luckily, this one does have two costumes, so he can look as if he's running. Okay, let's code that very quickly now. When do I want him to actually do that? As soon as my green flag is clicked, he's going to be running. As soon as my green flag is clicked. And when do I want him to change? I want him to change all the time. Okay, so we're actually going to use a forever loop. So this is something that will happen forever. We can actually change this to stop when the game finishes, but we can change that later on. And forever, I want him to switch costumes. So let's head over to looks, and we can switch costumes. So we can switch to costume 2, or we can do next costume. And in this case, I'm going to do next costume. So he seems as if he's running there. And remember, I can slow that down by adding another weight in there as well. And again, we can remove that one and turn that to something a little bit more appropriate. So he's running, and as soon as I press my space, he's jumping up. Okay, so we've got a good motion there already, if you're happy with that. Now, obviously, the next thing I need to create are my trees, which will be coming across. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over. Let's see if we can find a sprite. Now, what you can do is you can use a random sprite for now, and then we can amend it later on. So I did want some trees. We've got a green flag there. We can also use the hedgehogs. We can use anything we want. Remember, it is your game. But let's see, do we have trees here? We do have these trees. So I will simply code this with the trees for now. But we can obviously change the way it's looking later on. The first thing I want to do, these trees are too big. Remember, he was jumping up a total of 100 pixels. So ideally a good size for this could be roughly about 50 pixels. Now, getting that size might be a little bit difficult, but if we think, where is he at the moment? 100 pixels. So at the moment, let's see him jump. Okay, so probably about a quarter of the size he is now, the tree is now. Let's change that down to 25. Okay, so that's looking good. Okay, so he should be able to jump over them quite nicely. I can go over to costumes. We're going to edit the costumes later on. But now what I want is my trees to simply come randomly for my sprite to jump over. So what I want is my tree to simply go from one end to the other. So let's go ahead and code that. Now, at the moment where he is, or where my tree is, the x-axis, it's on 206. The y is minus 85. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with saying, as soon as my green flag is clicked, I want this tree to go to 206 by minus 85. So let's move that for now. And that's going to head there. I want it to be pushed further down the line. So let's think, which one do I want to change? Is it my x-axis or my y-axis? It's actually my x-axis. Remember that along the corridor? So I'm going to increase that to 206. So let's try. Let's see how far we can get it to go down. Okay, so we've got 244. Let's try 250. So as soon as my green flag is clicked, okay, the most I can get is 244, but that's fine. That's not a problem. So as soon as my green flag is clicked, he will head over there. Now, what I want him to do is I want him to constantly just come back around in that direction. Now, there's two ways I can do this. One way I can do is I can get it to glide. So let's try this way. I can get him to glide all the way over to this end, which will be not 244. The y-axis would always stay the same, but let's try that with minus 244, and let's see how that works. Okay, there we go. We may want to increase that. Let's try 250. Let's see how far down that will go. Okay, it seems that 2 minus 242 is the best we can do. So what we want is as soon as he gets there, obviously we want to change the timing a little bit, so I can change that to 3 seconds. Okay, and then my cat should jump over him like so. Okay, so as soon as my green flag is clicked, let's get it to show. Let's head over into that direction. And then once he's there, we can get him to hide. So let's try that now. Okay, there we go. So that 3 seconds again might be a little bit too long. Let's try 2 seconds. It's all down to trial and error. There we go. Okay, and disappeared. Now we've got that to happen one time. Okay, but what we are going to do is we're going to actually break this up a little bit because we're going to use something called clones. Now, if any of you guys know what a clone is, a clone is something, it's a duplicate of something else. Okay, so we're going to head down to control and we're going to use create clone of myself when I start as a clone, and we're also going to delete this clone as well. So what we're going to say is as soon as my green flag is clicked, we want you to go to a particular place. So let's get it to go to that end there. And once it's there, what we're going to do, in fact, let's get it to hide first. Hide, go to that position there, and then create a clone of myself. So whenever my green flag is clicked, that will happen. Obviously, that will happen only once, but we will improve on that shortly. Let's then say as soon as my clone is started, when I start as a clone, then that's when we can get it to show. Glide to the other side and then delete the clone. So, okay, so let's see what happens now. There we go. So that's worked perfectly. Now what we want is we want it to constantly create clones. So we're going to head over to create a forever loop. Okay, or instead of using forever loop, which we can change later on, we might want to use a repeat until loop. However, let's use that forever, create a clone of myself, and then we're going to get it to wait a couple of seconds as well. So let's head over back to control, and let's get it to wait 2 seconds. There we go. So every 2 seconds, I've got another tree coming across. Okay, now the other way we could have done this. Okay, the other way we could have done this is actually get it to the way we got our sprite to jump up. We could have actually used, instead of gliding 2 seconds, we could have used a forever or repeat until, and we could have got it to go a certain number of times, just simply changing the x-axis. So we could have used, if we head back to motion, change x by 10. Okay, or minus 10 in this case. But this is working well for now. Okay, obviously another couple of things we'd want to incorporate could be the score, and obviously a particular point in time where the game finishes. So that's two things we might want to add. A score, which you guys should know how to do. You may want to base a score on the number of times he jumps over a tree, or you may want to base it on how long he is in the game. You can also then incorporate a high score as well, which you guys should have been able to do. And what we can also do is think about having a game over. Now, we haven't incorporated a game over in any of our games so far, but ideally the game over could be as soon as he touches a tree. So we need to also think about when the game would actually finish. So we can actually either code the tree or code the sprite. We can say, let's try this. Uh, as soon as when I start as a clone, we can say forever if. So we're going to use a forever loop and an if statement. Now, there's a difference between just using an if statement and a forever if. If we just use an if statement, it would only ask that ifs question when it started as a clone. However, inside of forever if, it will always ask it. Okay, we're going to say forever if you're touching sprite one, ideally we could be changing these names, then we want to stop all. So let's head over to control and stop all. In some cases, we may just want to get it to hide. We may want to use a broadcast. We will come back next week and we will improve on this game anyway. Or you can get it to play a particular screen. So let's play this now. There we go. Stopped all. Okay. There we go. So I'm not really too good at this game. Ideally, I should be really good at this, seeing as I'm the one who's created it. There we go. There we go. Okay, now I seem to be really good at this game. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's get that done for today, boys. So we're creating our two sprites. Let's see if you're able to get a high score, well, a score involved. That would be great. A high score involved would also be great. And you're also more than welcome to draw your own tree. You're more than welcome to create your own sprite as well. Okay, make sure you get your link over to me on Google Classroom as well. I'll be looking forward to some of the games that you've been creating as well.